Hello, I'm Brandy. This is Hound Dog Hollow, and today we're going to be doing my first live in the astrology series. Um, Today is lesson one, the fundamentals. I think this might come out backwards for you guys, and I'm sorry for that, but the thumbnail should be correct. And this is some really cute paper, but that's not the point. So hi. Hello, Pagan Pathways. So basically, a while ago, I had started an astrology study group, and then I got inundated by grad school. Sorry about that. Inundated by grad school. And while I did all the studying myself, what I had learned, I didn't share out in my page and on this channel. So I was meaning to get to it. And then finally, I was like, okay, well, I really enjoy doing lives, and I wanted to, yeah, and I wanted to share what I had learned. So I decided to do a live series. That way, we could talk about all the topics, but also I can share what I learned. And if you had questions, I have all of my source material here. So if you don't have this book and you're into astrology, I highly recommend it. It's amazing. Amazing. I love this book. It's Astrology for Yourself, a workbook for personal transformation, how to understand and interpret your birth chart. And it's by Douglas Bloch and Demeter George. Very, very, very good. Um, the other major source material is, hi, Yvette. Thank you for coming. The Only Astrology Book You'll Ever Need by Joanne Martine Woolfolk. I actually bought this one first. It is not the only astrology book you'll ever need. I needed the other book to understand my chart, but it is a very good book. This one's a newer book, but excellent. The Stars Within You, A Modern Guide to Astrology by Juliana McCarthy. It's great. Also very good. And some other fun ones that I have are Momstrology. This is kind of advanced. This is relational astrology. Hi, Rochelle. This is kind of relational astrology, which is an advanced topic. First, get to know yourself, then get to know how you fit with others. Although most people really want to jump into relational astrology because we want to know if we're compatible with people. But it's really important to know yourself first. And then I got this one. This one I'm not covering so much in this series because this is actually practical application. So means ways to do magic with taking into account astrology. Thank you. I collect books. This is only a small fraction of my books. Okay, so basically I wanted to start with the building blocks or the fundamentals. So the first part is dualities. So directive versus receptive, or we can call that also masculine versus feminine. Although people are kind of stepping away from saying masculine versus feminine, I still use it, but I also can use directive versus receptive. And also, let's just talk about it. So every single sign and planet and energy has these two. It functions in one of two ways. Either it directs energy or it receives it. And that's the basic premise. So each zodiac sign will either be a directive sign or a receptive sign. So, for example, a masculine sign is direct, energetic, outside energy, strong through action. It is outgoing, self-expressive. Principles are freedom, active. It's positively charged, and we think of it as like the exhale, like and letting everything out, right? Those are your fire and your air signs. So Aries, Gemini, Leo, Libra, Sagittarius, Aquarius, and what we think of as yang, okay? And then the feminine, which is the receptive, the magnetic, is self-contained, is strong through inner reserves. It's ingoing, self-repressive. It functions on security, receptivity. It's negatively charged, and it's the inhale. the taking things in, the controlling yourself, the grounding yourself, right? And those are your earth and your water, your Taurus, Cancer, Virgo, Scorpio, Capricorn, Pisces, and what we think of as yin. Okay, so when you look at them side by side, they're directive, receptive, outer, self-contained, strong through action, strong through self. Your fire and air, your earth and water, your yang versus your yin, your inhale versus your exhale. What inhale is receptive, receiving, you're receiving breath, right? So every single sign will be one of these two dualities. Okay, and then we have our, I want to keep these in order, sorry. We have our triplicities. How cute. So these are actually what are the elements? Earth, air, fire, and water. They're triplicities because each of the 12 signs, 3 of them will fit into each of the categories, right? So we have 3 air, 3 fire, 3 earth, and 3 water. So the 4 elements are how energy manifests into form, right? Of course, the dog is like right outside my window barking at me. Hi, Jessica. And so basically you have fire, earth, air, and water. Oh, thank you. So fire is like plasma, earth is solid, air is gas, and water is liquids. So fire is identity, earth is material substance, air is mental, and water is feeling. So I'm just going to go through each different building block. So fire. It's plasma, identity, active, they're enthusiastic, spontaneous, inspiring, the active life force, the principle that energizes, energy of spirit, expression through direct action and inspires other. And so those are your Aries, your Leo, and your Sagittarius. Hold on one second. I have to silence my phone. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so basically you have earth, which is solids. So earth, solids, material substance, practical, stable. Think of grounded, slow. When you use earth magic, it's slow magic. Pragmatic, it's perceived by your senses. It's energy that gives form and substance. Masters of the world of common sense. Dream actualization, supplying basic survival needs. And those are your Taurus, your Virgo, and your Capricorn. The airs are your gases, your mental, your intellectual, your communicative, social, where your thoughts become structures, the energy of your breath, the sharing and communicating of ideas. And so those are your talkers, your Gemini, your Libra, your Aquarius. And then you have your water, which is liquids, feeling, emotion, intuition, the sensitivity, interrelatedness, unconscious forces that motivate us, or unconscious motivations, sympathy, compassion, intuitive awareness. And those are your Cancer, your Scorpio, and your Pisces. So I'm going over this. You could go over elements forever. And this book here talks a lot about elemental magic, because that's basically when you're using your zodiac. You can use your zodiac when you're using elemental magic as another force. So like Leo is a fire sign and its symbol is the sun. So if you had a candle magic or some other fire magic, you might also work in Leo in there to strengthen your spell, right? So you could go on forever about elements. And I'm not going to do that because that's part of Magic 101. You really should learn a lot about that. You should feel really comfortable. You should know spells for each different thing. And just in case you don't, I'm going to tell you. One of my favorite earth spells is planting a seed or a plant with an intention. And that's a slow magic that you have to work for and grow over time. Okay? Your fire is a nice burning magic. Air, I really like cleansing with wind. I like incense. I like maybe wish magic, like blowing out a dandelion. And then water, of course, is your ritual bathing, your spiritual cleansing in the shower, things like that. Have some spells for each type of element, and usually multiple. And sometimes when you layer multiple different types of spells, you can get more intensity, more power. So I think somebody's trying to get in. Okay. Can you get that dog, please?
Yeah.
I'm gonna murder her. Oh, thank you. We're smoking salmon. So let me just look at the comments really quick. I need a notebook. Yes, a notebook. I don't have my astrology notebook on me. You can get a notebook super cheap at Barnes and Nobles. Let me taste this. My husband spoke salmon today. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Rochelle. That's a lot of fire. I'm a Leo. Okay. Hubby's a Pisces. My husband's a Scorpio. Ooh. Love the elements. Very cool. Love it. Yeah, Jessica, elemental magic's really good. Okay, so the next is your quadruplicities, right? So these are your cardinal, your fixed, or your mutable. So your elements are how the energy manifests as form. Your quadruplicity is how the energy manifests as movement, as action, okay? So it signifies the signs interaction with the outside world. How does a Leo function with the outside world? How does a Pisces function with the outside world? Every combination of each sign is going to be different, and that's why we're starting with the building blocks. So your cardinal signs are your starters. They're at the very beginning of a season. So they're initiators, they're enterprising, they're outgoing, they're creation. They bring each season in, they generate energy, and they radiate it, okay? So you're talking about Aries, which brings in spring, Cancer brings in summer, Libra brings in fall, and Capricorn brings in winter. And then you're fixed. They're resistant to change. They're perfecters. They finish things. They don't start them, but they finish them. They're perseverance. They preserve the status quo. They're stable. They're dependable. They're the highest point of the season, right? They stabilize and concentrate the energy, and they aim it inward. And those are your Taurus, your Leo, your Scorpio, and your Aquarius. Those are the height of each season, right? Then your mutable, which is flexible, versatile, adaptable. They adjust to different circumstances because they're not the height of any season. They're transition into another season, right? They're the transformation. They're the change. They're how life adapts, distributes the energy between seasons, how things change, right? Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. So each of your signs will have all of these qualities, right? One of these qualities. And that's how you get the different flavors of the signs. That's why we're starting with this basic information, because if you have Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, they're all fire signs, but they're all really different. And it's because the other things are different. There's no sign that has the same qualities. It's all different flavors. So this one's not often talked about. Orientation. So each sign, as you journey through the zodiac, has a different orientation, right? So your early signs are your personal. So they're the infancy of your life's journey, where they're getting your personal needs met. So Aries and the Fool card in Tarot are synonymous. Not synonymous, but yes, they symbolize the beginning of the journey. Aries is your the very start of the zodiac and the beginning of the cycle through, right? Then you have Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer. Those are all personal signs. They have to do with self. Interpersonal signs are social, and they love interacting with others. Leo, Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio. And then your transpersonal signs, which are about those big, broad concepts of life. These are these are societal signs. These are philosophical signs. These are legacies and ideals. And those are Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. Those are big items. So I'm just going to read a little bit. I am the change. Okay, last but not least is your polarity. Okay, this is, I said directive versus receptive, but it's more than that. So it's the opposite characteristic of your sign. So basically, if your sign is Aries, then the full moon, which is the opposite of the sun, right? The full moon and the sun are opposites, was in Libra. So I was born on a full moon. I was born in Leo, and the moon was full in Aquarius, okay? So it's the opposite sides of these balance each other out, but they're also usually each other's detriment, right? So Aries is the sign of self because it's in the beginning of the zodiac. It's personal. It's an initiator. It's about you. It's a sign of self. Libra is the sign of partnerships. Taurus is the sign of personal possessions, materialism. Scorpio is the sign of legacies and shared possessions. The Gemini is self-expression. Sagittarius is philosophy. Cancer is home. Capricorn is public. Leo is personal pleasure. Aquarius is idealism. Virgo is work. Pisces is dreams. It is good to know the time you were born. You're going to need to know your rising sign for the most. I'm going to eat this last piece of salmon. You're going to need to know your rising sign for the most accurate. Sorry. For the most accurate chart. So my son's rising sign is Leo. So we'll get to it later. That's going to be a whole topic. But your sun, your moon, and your rising sign are the largest part of your personality. And they interact and balance each other. I can see that, Rochelle. Yep, I can see that too. Pardon me. Oh, you're a Capricorn? My son is a Capricorn. So, how does this all go together so that you can build a zodiac sign, right? And I'm going to go through. So you have Aries. Aries is a directive or masculine or yang energy. It's an outward energy. It's a fire sign. It's a cardinal sign because it's the beginning of the season. It's the beginning of the zodiac. It's a sign of self. And it's a very personal sign. Awesome. Oh, me too. I was born in the full moon as well. Oh, rising sign is Capricorn. Pagan, Jessica, if you can find your date of birth and your location of birth, you can go to Cafe Astrology and they will make you a whole free natal chart. So Taurus is an earth sign. It is receptive. It is fixed, set in its ways. And if you guys know Tauruses, you know that that's true. It's a personal sign, and it's a sign of personal possessions, of your stuff. Tauruses like stuff. So Gemini, it's also direct. It's an air sign. It's mutable. So Geminis are fluid. They're personal, and they're about self-expression. It's okay, Star Gypsy Dreamer. There's plenty of astrology here. Cancer is receptive. It's water. It's a cardinal sign, so it's the beginning of summer. It's very a personal sign, and it's about your home life, your comfort spot. So Leo, again, is direct, fire. It's fixed. So Leos are set in their ways, and I can vouch for that. But we're interpersonal. Whereas Aries, which is our first fire sign, Aries starts things. Aries is also about self. Leo, while it's still direct and fire, is fixed, more set in its ways, but it's also more about the personals. Leos need or really crave other people's approval and attention, and they need that interpersonal stuff, right? And they're also an interpersonal sign. So Virgo's receptive, earth sign, they're mutable. And whereas Taurus is fixed in his ways. Virgo is mutable. She's flexible, right? As opposed to being personal, like Taurus and about personal possessions, Virgo is interpersonal, and she's about hard work, which is not different than Taurus because Taurus can work hard, but the focus is more on the work for Virgo, right? So Libra, directive, air, cardinal sign. It's the beginning of fall. Whereas our last air sign was Gemini, so both direct and air. But Gemini is mutable. Gemini is moving. Libra's starting things. Libra's a whole different type of energy, right? Whereas Gemini is personal, Libra is interpersonal. Gemini is about expressing the self, and Libra is about making connections, right? So I'm just trying to convey how these building blocks really change the flavor. So think of them as ingredients, right? So is it going to be savory? Is it going to be sweet? Is it going to be spicy? Is it going to be mild? Is it going to be refreshing, or is it going to be warming? So Scorpio is receptive, water. It's a fixed sign, and it's interpersonal. It's about legacies. It's about way more than that. You probably think of different things when you think of Scorpio, but it is that's part of its role in the zodiac. Sagittarius is direct, fire, mutable, and this is the first transpersonal sign, right? So transpersonal is bigger than interpersonal because whereas Aries is about self, Leo is about interpersonal personal pleasure. Sagittarius is really about those transpersonal ideas, those higher learnings. It's about travel, it's about philosophy. Sagittarius is really concerned with big things, big ideas, bigger than me, bigger than us, but more like communities, societies, right? Capricorn, receptive, earth, cardinal, transpersonal. So the opposite of Capricorn, of course, is Cancer, whereas Cancer is home life, right? Capricorn is how you look in public, how you behave in public. Capricorn is like the sign of fathers. It's really about, it has to do with Saturn, right? It's really that like responsibility, okay? Aquarius is direct air, fixed, but it's also transpersonal. So, right? So, whereas let's compare it to the other two air signs. So, Gemini is personal, self expression. Libra is interpersonal, partnerships, how we express, how we communicate together, not just with each other, but together as a team, right? Aquarius is about those hopes and ideals, idealism, altruism. Those are big ideas about how we are as human beings. And then finally, of course, you have Pisces, which is receptive, water, it's mutable. Pisces are just like going with the flow. That's like their definition. But they're also transpersonal, right? So compared to the other water signs, Cancer is personal, it's about home. Scorpio is fixed, it's interpersonal, it's about legacies, and Pisces is really transpersonal. It's about dreams, it's about art, it's about these ephemeral, pleasurable qualities in life. But it's also about endings and addiction, because they can take things too far. So let me just look through the comments really quick. Oh, we're all saying our sign. Cool. Yeah, birth charts are important. Oh, Willow, Yvette, are you confused? I can answer any questions. I'm looking at the thing right now. Oh, yeah. So for myself and as an example, and I will go through this more in the future. I am a Leo. That's my sun sign. That's where the sun was when I was born. I was born in a full moon, so I'm an Aquarius. That's where the moon was when I was born, right? And then the exact minute of my birth, where I was born, right? The sign that was rising was Pisces. That's your rising sign. So your rising sign is how the world sees you. It's literally what sign was in the air when you took your first breath, how you came into the world, and so that's how the world perceives you. Your sun sign is the essence, the core of who you are, and your moon sign is your deep inner self. Who you present to the world is completely different than who you really are. Hi, Elder Moon. I know, so that's why we're breaking it down, Shauna. So if you know the basic building blocks, then you can really understand it on a deeper level. So what we most of us do is we say, I'm a Leo, and we read about it and we say that means this. But really, why does it mean that? Okay. So it's just like all the parts of an ingredient of the spell. Every single part is an ingredient to the spell that is your personality, the way that you are in the world. And the reason this is it's not just a divination. Um, I don't even really use astrology for divination, except for I try to be aware of the retrogrades because they will fuck you up. But it's not even about, by the way, it's Mercury retrograde, and it's been a rough one already, and it's just starting. It's not even about how I even lost my train of thought. Thank you, Mercury retrograde. It's not even about divination for me. It's literally about who am I? And it gives you a lens to look at yourself. Because some people will dismiss astrology and they'll read Leo and they'll be like, this is not me. None of this makes any sense. And what it really is, of course, you're not just one thing. You are a multifaceted human. There's lots of different layers of you. And so when you take a little bit at the basic core of yourself, you're probably what your sun sign is. But you might express yourself, your moon, you might feel how your moon sign is. You might present how your rising sign is. You're going to communicate whatever your Mercury is. You're going to love how your Venus is. You're going to be active and you're going to fight how your Mars is. Your Jupiter is going to be your expansion. You know, all of these things, they're going to tell a story of where they are. And then you have the houses which tell the story. They if your signs are the actors, the houses are the stage. What's the scene, right? And then your actors play out their scene in the different houses. And then you have the angles between them. So it gets complicated, but we're just starting at the basic building blocks. I know. So retrograde, the day that retrograde started, I lost my wallet. Okay. I kind of felt like I lost my wallet, but my husband's like, oh, let's look in the house. So we looked all through the house. Of course, my wallet wasn't there. So I called all the stores that I had gone to that day, and they said they didn't have it. So then I was like, well, maybe if I go back through the store. So I walked over to the store, and then I was like, let me call just one more time. So I called the stores. And then the second time that I called, the first store that I went to with my husband, Sportsman's, so he could look at guns and sporting goods. I had left it there in the chair that I had been sitting in when he was looking around. So thankfully I got it there. Nobody had touched anything. But then we're like, oh, I want to smoke some fish. So can you pick up some trout on the way home? So the grocery store right next to Sportsman didn't have any trout. So my husband really wanted trout. So I crossed town to the other grocery store. Guess what? They just sold out of trout. So I ended up getting salmon and I got all the groceries. And then I stand in line behind a lady who had like a million coupons. And when her coupon didn't work, she wanted the cashier to send somebody to get her the proper item so her coupon would work. So I was behind this lady in line for half an hour. But I kept my cool because I'm like, Mercury's retrograde. At least I have my wallet. At least I have money to buy groceries. Everything's going to be okay. And I finally made it home. Yikes. But yeah, it is like unraveling the mystery. But the best part is the mystery is you. So everything that you learn is applicable to your life, to yourself. So that's why I like this book here, Astrology for Yourself. Because it's literally exactly what it says, astrology for yourself. So it's just like, I can show you some of the things. It's going to be backwards. But this book also breaks it down that way, and that was so helpful for me. So basically it says learning the basics, and it talks about the zodiac, which we'll get to. That's going to be our next topic, is starting broadly with the zodiac. But then it goes back into like the 4 elements, right? You have your 4 elements. Fire is the identity, earth is the material substance, air is the mental, water is the feeling. And then what's really nice is that it has a breakdown for each thing. I really recommend it. So fire is identity, right? And it goes through and it says all the fire stuff. Air signs are social and mental. Water signs are emotional and soul. Earth signs are material. So then this is where this book really shines, okay? So when you start going through your zodiac, it'll say, I'm an earth sign. And then it'll ask you to pick 3 good qualities about earth signs, and it'll give you a list of qualities to choose from. So you pick 3 good signs when you're skilled. So they don't even say good or bad. They're just saying when you're on point, when you're your best self, you're these qualities and you pick them. And when you're not at your best self, or you're tired, or you're grouchy, or everybody knows that they have a bad problem with something, it breaks it down like that. So for example, I'm a Leo. And when I'm on point, I can be, I'm just going to list all these: radiant, glowing, warm, flaming, energetic, creative, fervent, aspiring, spontaneous, passionate, daring. But when I'm not in a good place, I can be hot headed, rash, impatient, impulsive, impetuous, excitable, willful, uncontrollable, or burned out. And it gives you the choice to say, to reflect on yourself and say, okay, yes, I have these good qualities, but sometimes I'm not that great, and here's how. And it kind of lets you say, like, where you are and what your weak points are, and helps you work on that. Oh, cool. Yeah, this is a great book. I got it. I mean, I got it at Barnes and Nobles. You could probably get it used. It's, I don't know. I think it must be still in print if they have it in Barnes and Nobles. Oh yeah. I have those same oracle cards, and I actually journaled about them. Um, I have 2 oracle decks. Um, so I have the astrological oracle, and I have the black moon oracle. I like the black moon better than the astrological ones, but that was later. That would be much later. This is just like a basic intro. Um, they all are. I will say that this one's more helping yourself understand what's going on. So I like this one a lot better. The only astrology book you'll ever need will tell you everything you need to know about yourself. So if you know what you are, you can just say, that's it, that's it, that's it, and read through it. No, Misty, I'm cheap as hell. I write these questions down in my journal. I don't write in this book. I hate writing in books. Never, 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 never. I do not write in this book. I write it down in my book of shadows, and I work my way through it. And you know what? I did it 2 years ago, and then I did it recently when I was doing this astrology thing, and it's changed because I've changed and I've grown. I don't do my son's ever because I don't want to put that on him. But I like the Momstrology because it's like, if you're a mom with this kind of kid, you might consider these parenting strategies. So I like this chart here. It's just like, is it a positive or negative? So is it directing or receiving energy? What's the sign? What's the zodiac sign? What's the element? And is it personal or interpersonal? Everything's transposed on this one. So that's a little bit challenging. This one's also a really nice diagram. So this is everything. This is divine. And then you have the yang, the directive force of the divine, the receptive force of the divine, and then each of the elements fit into there, right? That's great. That is a good book. Um, then you have modalities, right? So cardinal signs initiate action, fixed signs stabilize and secure, mutable signs adapt and learn. And then they added another layer, right? So you have your elements, and you have your modalities, and it just makes each sign deeper and more in depth. So then it asks you the same question. If I'm a cardinal sign, right, and I'm on point and I'm skillful and I'm at my best self as a fixed cardinal sign for Leo, I'm concentrating, stabilizing, sustaining, finishing, establishing, persevering, conserving, steadfast, focused, powerful, persistent, constant, determined. If I'm not at my best, if I'm not skillfully applying that energy, I'm stubborn, rigid, resistant to change, stuck, obsessed, overly retentive, inert, habit bound. So it really tells you like how these things are not negative, but how you're misdirecting the energy that you were given. And then it's really nice. Here's another really nice chart. So you have unity, the list like all the energy, source, whatever you want to call it, the directive, the receptive, the elements, and then you have how each sign fits into the mutability chart, right? And so that all goes together. So then how we meet the world is our personal, interpersonal, and transpersonal. And it's just really nice. I'm going to show you the last one. There's a really nice structured one. Do, 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 do. Well, I can't find it now, but that's only because I'm on point. I'm on the spot. So yes, I love this book. I've worked through it. That's kind of how I've gotten started. But the other books are really helpful too, but in different ways. Oh yeah, Scorpios. My husband's a Scorpio. My youngest is a Capricorn, and that's a whole different story. But yeah, Scorpio. So the next thing is probably going to be the zodiac as a whole, and that's a lot of information, right? It's just we're going to cover the zodiac as a whole. So the principles, the actions of each thing together, right? And then I was going to do a deep dive because your Aries has a lot of correspondences. So I was going to talk about Aries, talk about each of the correspondences, and so on and so forth. And then once the signs are done, we're going to talk about the planets, right? We're going to talk about the sun, the moon, the rising, which is not a planet, but it's still important. And technically, neither is the moon and the sun. Those are luminaries. But anyway, they're really important parts of your chart. The inner planets, which are your Mercury, your Venus, and your Mars, and then your outer planets, so your Jupiter and your Saturn, and then your generational planets. They're called that because they change very slowly. And so most of the people your own age will probably have the same Pluto sign as you. Actually, Pluto's like 84 years. So almost everybody you know now is probably the same Pluto sign as you. So we'll go through that. Then once you have the planets down, I wanted to talk about the houses because that was a really difficult concept for me to grasp. Then we can talk about how things fit. So, for example, my chart has a lot of empty houses, and there are some signs that don't even have houses. There are intercepted signs, and that's a whole different thing. I also have a stellium, which means that I have 4 or more planets in one sign. My sun has a stellium as well. So we're really fixed. Chiron, Black Moon Lilith, the North and the South Node, yes, I talk about. Chiron and Black Moon Lilith, I can. This book actually goes through a lot of different asteroids. So I'd like to talk about the nodes for sure. And I like to talk about your midheaven, your MC and your IC, okay? And the nodes are really important because those are so what you have coming into your life, that's your strength, and what's the lesson that you need to learn in this lifetime. So those are the nodes. Those are also really important. The older asteroids I will look at later, but I haven't I don't think that that is introductory. So I wasn't going to include that in the first swipe. The first swipe, I was just going to talk about the 10 things that all of us know, and then come back to the asteroids and Chiron. So, but this book does cover Chiron, and it tells you all about it. It tells you about the energies. It does cover Chiron, and it tells you all about it. It tells you about the energies, educational and healing instincts, because he's the wounded healer, right? And then you go through and you answer the things. And so, for example, if your Chiron is in fire, how you teach and heal is through inspiring with visions and energy healing. It's a great book. I love this book. And so then Ceres is a different, um, it's a different asteroid, and it says your Ceres sign indicates how I give and receive nurturing and develop self-worth. Your Pallas sign, another asteroid, how I express my capacity for creative intelligence and original perceptions. Your Vesta, how I commit myself to a work or ideal. Your Juno, how I express my capacity for meaningful relationships. And then, of course, there's Psyche. There's Lilith. Lilith is my capacity to constructively release my repressed anger and to resolve conflict. Um, it has all of these, and this was made in like the 70s, I believe, is the copyright date, and it's still amazing. It's still really good. Let me see, 1987, so not quite the 70s, but still pretty freaking old. I was 3 when this came out, and it's just so wonderful. I can't even I love it. I love it a lot. So the other books that I was going to show you guys is the book that I actually started with is this one, The Only Astrology Book You'll Ever Need. It's a misnomer because I did not know how to make a chart. I did not know my ass end up for like how to read a chart. And do you know what? Without having anybody to talk to, and with the internet kind of assumes that you know. So that's why I'm starting at the most basic level, because it's okay if you know the information. But for those of you out here who don't know, and maybe you don't know that you don't know, or maybe nobody's really explicitly clear, so you're missing something, I want to be there for you because I literally did not know this. So The Only Astrology Book You'll Ever Need is really good, but it does assume that you know like how to read your chart. It just, or maybe she doesn't, but the way that she put it out there wasn't in the way that I could that's cool. It wasn't in a way that I could understand how to work for myself. So she starts out with sun signs, and a good portion of the book is sun signs. She goes into some serious depth. She does talk about the building blocks. She talks about the dualities, right? This is kind of an older book, so she's a little bit sexist. But in my opinion, it's pretty true for most people. But I'm just giving you a warning because some people are super sensitive about that these days. So she talks about the triplicities, the quadruplicities, the polarities. And then it goes into like, what's your sun sign? And what's really nice about this is it's so in depth and so detailed. So like, it doesn't just say you're Aries, right? Your Aries, tells you the duality, masculine, triplicity, fire, quadruplicity is cardinal. It says Aries is active, energetic, excitable, impulsive, optimistic, open to change and new experiences. The ruling planet is Mars, talks about that. The symbol is the ram, talks about that. The glyph, and it shows you the little sign. So basically the sign that we see when somebody's talking about Aries is that, which is the head of a ram. I know, right? So then there's the dominant keyword, which is I am. The polarity is Libra. It rules the body part is the head, so it goes into the body parts. The lucky day is Tuesday. The lucky numbers are 1 and 9. The magical birthstone is diamond. The special color is red. Your cities are Florence, Naples, Verona, and Marseille. Your countries are England, Germany, and Poland. Your flower is geranium, honeysuckle, and sweet pea. Your tree is all thorn-bearing trees. Metal is iron. Your animals are sheep. And then your danger sign. But also it says your most likable trait. And then it talks about what's good about you, right? Yeah. And then it also talks about the inner you, how others see you. It is really in depth, okay? It's really in depth. It goes into each different zodiac sign just the same way. It talks about like all of that. So it's very in depth. It talks about relational astrology, so how different signs pair through, and so it has this large section about um, like for example, Cancer. What's your amorous nature? If you want to attract a Cancer woman, if you want to attract a Cancer man, how to attract a Cancer in general, and then the different combinations for Cancer. So it goes through pretty detailed in that way. Then this part it really shines because no other book that I have does this. So the decanates and the cusps, because even within one sun sign, there's different flavors because it's like, are you the beginning? Are you on the cusp? Are you kind of mixed with this other thing? So basically each sign is divided into 3 decanates. So 3 decanates, 10 days each. So for example, Aries, you start on the 21st, which is of course the equinox, through March 31st, and it talks about like what are the constellations, what is the planetary subruler, what's the keyword for that thing. So it breaks it down even more. Sorry, my voice is getting dry. It's really detailed that way. So let me look at Libra or Leo. So I'm the second decanate. My keyword, expansion. My constellation is Ursa Major, the Big Dipper. It symbolizes wisdom. My planetary subruler is Jupiter. So it gives you more. Oh yeah, cusp signs are really. They can be a little bit of both. And then it talks about what if you're on the cusp, and it gives you a little brief thing. It talks about astrology and your health. And the other books don't talk about that either. But it basically says if you're this sign, you may be prone to these problems. You might want to consider X, Y, Z. So it talks about the part of your body, diet and health tips, different erogenous zones. Hey, so what does it say for me? My erogenous zone as a Leo caresses over my back and spine. Well, I'm not going to argue that. Let's see what Capricorn is. Capricorn is the knees. Ooh, maybe behind the knee. That might be kind of erotic. Oh, but they also like the small of the back. So that's kind of cool. I mean, some of this is kind of a stretch. The knees, I don't know. So then it goes into part 2 is all about the different other signs. So you have your moon signs, which we will talk about soon, and what each of those moon signs mean. You have your ascendant, which is super important, your rising sign, and what that means. Then it talks about each of your planets. So Mercury, Venus, so on and so forth, right? And then once it's done talking about your planets, it goes into your houses. So it's a pretty thorough book. It's a very thorough book. And once I had the knowledge to say like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing and this is what this means and that's how I'm going to look at it, then it all made sense. And I could go back to this book and get a really in-depth information for me. But until I had those pieces together, it didn't work. It didn't work for me. So I really like this one because she does go by. She breaks down the houses really well with like symbolism. And if you're into also tarot or different divination forms, you're going to see a lot of it. It's going to add a lot of depthness and richness and depth to your practice, because every major arcana sign has some kind of astrological symbol um, on there, either subtle or outright. So let's see. It talks about, so this is kind of advanced. The different angles of the houses and how they mean different things, different sections of your lives, right? Talks about what it means to have each different planet in each different house. And then it goes to how to interpret your horoscope. So this is how it starts. It tells you how to draw a birth chart, which is great. If you know that, great, unless you want to get it from the internet, right? And then it tells you that, so for example, I'm just going to tell you right now. Oh, God, look at this, guys. I need to get my hair dyed. Anyway, it's going to tell you right now that when you know your rising sign, so imagine this horizon. You take your first breath, and literally the sign that's coming up when you take your first breath is your ascendant. And so it's the beginning of your chart. Everything else is going to go around. So whereas a standard chart, the beginning is Aries, Taurus, blah, blah, blah. My rising sign is Pisces. So my houses start at Pisces, and then they work around, right? So I didn't learn that from this book. I had to learn that from the other book. I didn't understand that. She talks about how to read the symbols. She talks about how to interpret the different where things are. I mean, she does a sample chart, a really detailed sample on Oprah Winfrey, and just different things that you can look at, like how many earth signs are in your chart, how many fixed signs are in your chart, how many masculines are in your chart. And if you go to Cafe Astrology, when they print it out for you, they will tally all of that up for you, and they will tell you your angles. So it's really nice and it's really free. And if you put in your husband's or your child's, it will tell you the compatibility all automatically. My Pisces is the first house, yeah, because that's how my birth chart is. So your ascendant is the first house for your thing. So everybody, that's why it's so important to know your rising sign, because everybody's rising sign is different. And so your everything will switch. The zodiac, your houses, so the circles like this, right? And you start at the 9 o'clock position, okay? Your first house is at 9 o'clock. And then you go backwards. Boop, 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 boop. So your first house is 9 o'clock. Your second house is 8 o'clock. Your third house is 7. Your fourth house is also your IC, which is the opposite of the midheaven. Then your fifth house, your sixth house, 7, 8, 9 is your midheaven. 10, 11, 12 is back at 9. Or it ends at 9. It's actually at the 10, right? So it was very confusing until I actually read this other book that was like, okay, this is what that means. And it has blank charts for you to write your own stuff in so you can understand better. I didn't write in the book. I just drew things. Yeah. Oh, Aries, Sun, and Moon. So you were born on a new moon. That's pretty cool. And then it tells you about different patterns. This one was hard for me too. I didn't see the pattern in mind. And that's also the reason, Rochelle, that I'm starting with the 10 main things, because those are the strongest energies in your chart. And whereas the asteroids are like complementary or like specific types of energy, which are seriously important, but they're not the big major parts of our personality. So like your sun, moon, and ascendant obviously is very important. Your Mercury is how you communicate, super important. So the closer the planet is to Earth, the more important it is. Mercury is very close. It's how we communicate. Venus is how we love. Mars is how we act. Jupiter is like our expansion. And then Saturn is our responsibilities, our discipline. Then you have Uranus, which is far from us. these are the transpersonals. These are lifetime planets, right? And so that one's more like rebellion. But they also consider it to be like an evolved form of Mercury. So I'll get into that. That's complicated. So they think of Uranus energy as evolved Mercury energy, and Neptune energy as evolved Venus energy, and Pluto energy as evolved Mars energy. Complicated, but once we get there, you'll kind of understand more because we'll do a lot of background work. But anyways, back to this book. The last part is like aspects, so different. So like if you have a conjunction, if you have a right angle, if you have different angles, it gets that detailed. You can really learn a lot about yourself, right? The synastry is for lovers, so how people are compatible, right? Then this was really also a neat section, the story of astrology. So like my hair stuck, all the different stories behind each of the zodiac signs, because there's a lot to it. So they're talking about how it started in like ancient Babylonia, and then different how Hindus contributed, how Egyptians contributed, Chinese contributed, Babylonians really are more like what we know, and then of course the Greeks and the Romans, the modern era. It's really interesting. The legend behind each sign. So like, what is the story behind Leo? What is the story behind each of them? And that's really helpful too. And then it talks about the ages. So like, of course, you guys have heard like, oh, this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. That's like really an astrological term that they kind of co-opted for that song. I don't think we're in the age of Aquarius anymore. I think we're in the age of Pisces. So let me see here. Age of Pisces, 2000 onward. So we're well into the age of Pisces. Obviously, they were in the age of Aquarius when she wrote this book. So let me see what else we got here. So, and then it's just like explanation of terms, which is pretty helpful. And then astrological tables, where before you have computers, you could like look everything up, but now we have computers and you could just do it for free. I've got one more book I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to wrap it up. This one I got recently. It's really good. It's pretty simple. It's pretty direct. You might even get this one and kind of roll with it. So basically, it's a modern take, because obviously those two books are really old. But then again, astrology is really, really old. But some of the planners are newer. Explain that, Yvette. Everything outside the actual signs are things that are enhancers. Everything that is outside the actual signs. So how would I say that? So I would say is that so going back to the thing, right? You have all these building blocks, all this energy, the energy of the universe, of our lives and personalities. They are kind of like that. Let me see how I can explain it. Okay, so when you come into this world, when you're born, when you take that first breath of air, your personality is kind of set by saying that there's all this energy in the universe, right? And the planets are directing these energies, right? So, the asteroids, but they are part of you. Every single thing has an influence on you, right? Has an influence on your person. That's the premise of astrology. Is all these heavenly bodies have an effect on you. Some things we can scientifically prove, like sun, literally gives you vitamin D, or can burn you or give you cancer. The moon, statistically, people act differently on the moon, and it causes tides. We can prove that those things act on us. So the premise of astrology is that these energies are acting on us, And the most important thing is how they're acting specifically on us when we're born. But you evolve and you grow. So that's why you want to revisit those things every once in a while. The energies are still there, but the energies has lots of different facets and capacities. So basically, when you're born, the planets say what energies are going to express themselves where in your life, right? So your sun, which is your core personal self, it's going to express yourself as its sun sign. That's the expression that it's going to take. So if your sun sign is Leo, that's the expression of your sun, your core self energy. If your moon is in Aquarius, that's the expression of your emotions, your core emotions. That's how they're going to express themselves. And then your house says, what part of your life are they really going to dominate in? Thank you, Timeless Auto Works. um, oh God, I got a little beetle. So I have my citrus trees in the front room, and this little jerk wants to eat them. Oh, thank you, Shauna. I teach all the time. So basically, but usually it's all diabetes. Okay, so what I'm saying, Yvette, is that yes, it's saying like how the energy of these planets predispose you to act in certain segments, right? So if your Chiron is how you heal, when you need healing, the sign that your Chiron was in tells you how you're predisposed, how you are wanting, how you will naturally desire, or how you will heal best. That's the energy that will heal you best. Does that make sense? It's saying for your specific person how these things are going to express themselves, or how you prefer to express yourself, or how this energy is going to play out in your life. We're going to get more into that because that's a big ephemeral concept, right? But what I'm saying is, these children are yelling. Everything is important, but there's different levels of importance, right? The sun is really bright and it dominates everything, right? The moon is going to be more important. They're going to have stronger things. The asteroids are important because those aspects, the healing for Chiron, that's really important. If you know how to heal yourself, you'll be better off, right? That's the self-discovery part. And for Lilith, if you know how to deal with your repressed anger, if you know how to deal with this need for vengeance, or these grudge holdings, if you know how to deal with that, if you know how you're predisposed to express that or heal that, then you can know how to deal with those situations. You can know how to deal healthier. And it's not saying that it's not 100% thing, but like Jungians, right? Carl Jung followers believe that these archetypes, the astrology is these archetypes already in our personalities, and that these archetypes, just like in tarot, just like in oracle, just like in all these other things, that astrology helps us to understand the different segments of reality, but also ourselves. And so each different asteroid, it may be a small segment or maybe a seasoning, right? But it is still an important facet of who you are. Are they the biggest facets? No. Do you need to know them to function? Probably not. But if you were in a bad place and you were in need of healing, it would probably help. That's just my take on it. So we'll start with the most important planets, or the ones that have the biggest thing, and then we'll work our way out. But I think it's really cool. So that's what I really like astrology for, the self discovery. So this is just a basic blurb about what each thing. So sun is self, your main concerns, your vitality. Moon, your emotion, your instincts, your habits. Mercury, your communication, your intellect, your reasoning. Venus, your love, your beauty, or what's beautiful to you, art. Mars, action, desire, aggression. Jupiter, expansion, optimism, boundaries, or abundance. Saturn is restriction, pessimism, structure. Uranus is rebellion, eccentricity, upheaval. Neptune is imagination, dreams, but also delusions. And Pluto is transformation, obsession, and power. Yeah, Capricorns will do things. Capricorns are like stubborn and loyal, and they will do things to a fault. But I can see how. And then their opposite is Cancer. I mean, I would definitely think. Um, I would look into that. But Chiron is okay. So if Chiron is the energy, right? Chiron is the energy, the healing, right? The zodiac sign that it is in is how that expresses, right? How it expresses if it's a fire sign, if it's a direct sign, if it's a personal sign, right? And then the house is the scene where it's playing out, which is the 10th house. But the 10th house can be um, complicated. What does this one say about the 10th house? 10th house. Career and social status. The natural ruler is Capricorn. Keywords: career, social status, your father, fatherhood, ambition, and outer responsibilities. The 10th house rules career, society, and the father. This is a house that shows us which career will bring us success and how we will contribute to society. It can also tell us about how we perceive our father and how we relate to discipline and tradition. Many planets here would mean we focus our energies on climbing the social ladder, achieving success, and becoming well known. The signs and planets that fall in this house indicate how we relate to career and society. For example, a 10th house in Gemini reflects a soul who can make a living as a writer, teacher, or speaker. Pluto in the 10th house denotes a commanding presence at work and the potential to achieve tremendous power and fame. Oh, cool. I mean, but it might be, yes, definitely. It could be career, social status, fatherhood, discipline, tradition, ambition. So Capricorn is really about that father figure. So Saturn, obviously, is Jupiter's dad, right? He was the dad of a lot of these zodiac signs. Mythologically, he's the dad, and he ate his children, and then his children were tired of being eaten, and they shanked him on the inside, right? And they escaped, and they overthrew him and the other titans, and they locked him up in prison. But Saturn is always, he represents time. He represents discipline, boundaries, structure. He represents the father, and that is Capricorn's ruling planet. Oh, yes, that's true. That's really interesting. So this one's really nice, straightforward, to the point. Goes over the basics, which I think is vital. Um, Talks about the big picture. Goes through the signs and what archetypes they represent. Right. Talks about the signs and the seasons where they fall, and then she breaks it down by. She also does the dualities, triplicities, quadruplicities. Right. Then she breaks it down by this is the sign. This is Aries. He's the leader. This is the date. This is his ruling planet. This is his symbol. His main descriptors are courageous and headstrong. He's masculine, fire, cardinal. I am the body parts, the colors, the crystals. So this one's the only one that talks about crystals. So bloodstone, adventurite, and diamond. The attributes, the interests, and the drive. Exactly. It's really accurate, Rochelle. It's so then it talks about the progress, which I really like about this book. So this book talks to me on a philosophical level about like so if an astrology so let's take for example tarot. Tarot, you start out at the Fool and you go through this huge journey to end up at the World, right? To end up at the end, which is also the beginning, or it turns into the beginning. You go through all these different archetypes, these life lessons, so to speak, right? To get to your journey. Astrology is literally the same thing. You start out as the Fool, as the Aries in the beginning, and you work your way through to Pluto, which is death and transformation, which goes back to the beginning, right? Talks about the symbol and it talks about the myth, tells you what the myth is. And then it goes through each planet that way, which is super helpful. So Leo, my stones are onyx, gold, and ruby. I'm warm, loyal, proud, dramatic, radiant, and fierce. I like to impress. um, so mine is The mythology behind mine is I was the Nemean lion that Hercules was required to kill as one of his 12 laborers. He's impervious to weapons, so he strangled him with his bare hands. And then he skinned him to use his pelt as a helmet and armor. And then the spirit of the lion was placed in the sky as the constellation Leo, reminding us of Leo's mythic power and magical strength. And then it talks like that about each of them, which is kind of nice. I really like that because I think that mythology really helps us understand those bigger concepts in life. So the sun, our expression, sanity, and joy. And it goes through, I really like this one too because it talks about like what are the archetypes for your sign and what's your journey, right? So if you were an Aries, you're a warrior. Your archetypes are if you're enlightened or if you have a skillful application of the energy you were endowed with, you're the trailblazer, you're a hero. If you're not skilled or if you're using that energy poorly, you might be a fighter, you might be a child. Your journey is to become a selfless leader. Your drive is to lead. Your journey is to become not a selfish one, but a good one. It has your gifts and it has your struggles. And that's really helpful if you're doing this astrology for self-discovery to learn yourself. So like mine, Leo, my power is the heart. The archetypes, if I'm on point, if I'm doing a good job with the energy I've been given, I'm a performer, I'm a loving king. If I'm neurotic, I'm a show-off and I'm an autocrat. My journey is expanding into unconditional love. So you have an enormous heart, you're fiercely loyal, and you fix on the object of your affection. To grow into the king or queen of hearts, which is their true purpose, Leos must raise their gaze from personal love to limitless compassion. That's our soul journey if you were born in the sun sign. It talks about the gifts you were given, talks about the struggles you have. It's really, really good. I like this book a lot. Would I don't know. See, it's impossible because I did not have this book alone, and I got this book pretty far into my astrological journey. I had already done my chart. I had already done this. Even knowing all of that, this really did give it a whole different flavor because it talks in different ways. So like when these were written, so the only astrology book you'll ever need, she's talking about how you are in the world, but there's like a sense that it's just like so that you can function better in the world and not necessarily so that you can know yourself. And I'm a witch, and one of our main tenets is know thyself, witch, know thyself, own your shit. That's why we do shadow work. That's why it gives you power to know your limitations, to know your strengths, to know your weaknesses, to know the bad side of yourself. Know yourself, and that's why this gives you power. I'm not saying that I can't leave the house because Mercury's in retrograde and I might get hit by a car. That's not how to use astrology. That's weak using of it. So when people are like, you believe in astrology? It's like, why not? It's not saying that I believe that this magical thing is going to happen. Even with the best divination, I don't believe that that thing is going to happen. I believe that if I keep on going the way that I'm going, it's probably going to end that way. That's what astrology and what your divination and what your oracle cards and what your tarot is telling you. Nothing is set. If you change your ways, your future changes. So what doesn't change is yourself. I may act a certain way because I've evolved and because I know myself well enough, but my nature is still a certain way. And you work with your nature or you work against your nature. But knowing is half the battle. So then it talks about your moon sign. So your emotional nature, sources of contentment. So that's really sweet. This is a nice chapter. So like my moon is in Aquarius. My emotional nature is unconventional, rebellious, authentic, detached. My sources of contentment are invention, community, creative work, and humanitarianism. The ascendant. So it's really important. Your rising sign and your ascendant are the main thing. But what this one does that the other ones don't do is your ascendant really talks about your early life, your childhood, and these things that are going to shape you, right? So let's just go to my ascendant. My ascendant is Pisces. My first impression is that I'm easygoing, imaginative, sensitive, and practical. It might affect your physical appearance with large, dreamy eyes, which I don't think I have, gentle demeanor, soothing voice, prominent feet, soft skin, flowing movements, star quality. So then it talks about your childhood. Pisces rising children are protective and dreamy. They need ample time alone to live in the realm of imagination. If these sensitive beings are not protected, they will absorb other people's emotions, becoming psychic sponges for negativity. Pretending like everything okay when their parents are fighting will harm Pisces ascendant children. They are extremely sensitive and will literally feel other people's emotions. Meditation and other methods of self-care are good to begin early on so they can harness their gifts of sensitivity and compassion without feeling overwhelmed. And then it's like how to find a balance. Eat that. No, but if you just read the parts that pertain to you, you could probably get through them pretty quick. Inner planets. So then it just talks about like Mercury, your mind and communication. Venus, your love, creativity, and values. And then it goes through each sign. Mars, your physical exertion, initiative, and sexuality. Then we go to the social planets, Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter, good fortune, expansion, abundance. Saturn, responsibility, restraint, and ambition. The outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So Uranus is intuition, rebellion, and revolution. So considered a higher octave of Mercury, which rules the intellectual mind. Uranus will take our ordinary perceptions and add crystalline dimensions. If Mercury is science, Uranus is theoretical physics, and that's what it means by like an evolved form. So then it talks about what to do. Neptune is spirituality, compassion, and imagination. So Neptune is the higher octave of Venus, the planet of love. Venus rules romance. Neptune is universal love. Then there's what each sign in Neptune means. Pluto, surrender, transformation, and power. So it's the higher octave of Mars, but let me see. I have to read this whole thing. Pluto is the shaman. I don't see how it says that, but I will come back to it. I read it somewhere, but now I can't find it. I will have to come back to that, guys. I'm sorry. So then it goes into the houses, right? Where we direct our energies. So the first house is self, and each sign, okay, so for you, your first house is going to be ruled by something, but it's still also ruled by whatever house it is, okay? So my first house is Pisces because that's where my rising sign is. However, Pisces, or the first house is the sign of the house of self, so it's still ruled by Aries because that's Aries' domain, is self. Second house is possession. Third house is communication. Fourth house is home. Fifth house is creativity. Sixth house is service, and that's where I have my stellium. 4 planets in the house of service. Seventh house is partnership. Eighth house is sex and death. Ninth house is philosophy. 10th house is career. 11th house is community. And 12th house is spirituality. And that's just a very brief overview. Then it goes through each house. It goes through the house divisions, right? I like this a lot. So the houses have 4 cusps. Your ascendant, your rising sign, your descendant, which is your 6th, your nadir, which is the bottom, and your midheaven, which is the top, the 9th. And they each mean something different. So your ascendant is your outermost self. So my rising sign, right? Your descendant, the 7th house. So that's your relationships and your marriage. Your nadir or your imam kuli, which is your 4th house cusp, is your innermost self, your intimacy, and your midheaven is your career and your reputation. Houses on the eastern side, so like basically 9, 10, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, those sides are assertive, the other sides receptive. Houses on the bottom, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, are interpersonal, are the personal ones, internal, personal. And the houses on the top, 7 through 12, are um, external, social. And then all the aspects, which is um, the different angles between your planets. The last two books are specialty books. Momstrology, it's relational. It's basically like, if I'm a Leo, what should I know about raising a Capricorn? But it's also cool because it gives you insights. Like when it talks about the Leo child, it kind of like, oh yeah, I was a Leo child, and I see a lot of myself in there. So like, it's really interesting on a lot of levels. I really like this book a lot. It was a great find. And last but not least, Sky Alexander, who wrote the Modern Guide to Witchcraft, Magickal Astrology. This is really practical for spell work. And that's it. I'm way past an hour. Any last questions before I have to go? Oh man, it's 8:18. I wonder if my husband cooked dinner. Thank you, Rochelle. I have a list a mile long. So hopefully I will have everything ready for next week. Next week we're going to talk about the zodiac as a whole. And then we'll go through each zodiac sign over the subsequent weeks. Although I might do multiple zodiac signs. I might do them in segments to get through them faster, so that we're not doing 12 weeks of zodiac signs. But hopefully you like this content. There's a lot, so there's gonna be it's gonna be quite some time of astrology on my channel. There'll still be other witchy stuff, and I'm gonna do a video about how I recycle my candles, but I need time for that. So, will I have a list of the books I tagged? I will try, but after this, I got to eat dinner and I got to put my son to bed for school, and then tomorrow I have a paper due. So I will try, but it's gonna probably be delayed. Thank you for sharing this good information. Thank you guys. I'm glad you like it. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Okay, perfect. Love you guys so much. Thank you for watching. If you want to re-watch this for the information, all the information is front-loaded. So again, this is my astrology series. Today was lesson 1, the fundamentals, and we'll be going into lots more later. So thank you so much for watching. I love you guys. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.